Hey, Upper East Siders and all you scandal-loving listeners out there. You've just tuned into the non-judging breakfast pod, where the coffee is strong, the waffles are fresh, and the gossip is hotter than ever. I'm Leif, your seasoned Gossip Girl veteran.
And I'm Steve, your newbie, your greenhorn, your I don't know, what do you call the fresh meat on Gossip Girl, Leaf?
I think they would label you as a project, the girls who have a potential to be a Blairite.
All right, well then dress me up in an Eleanor Waldorf original and let's get started.
Sounds good.
So folks, here's the deal. Leaf has been living and breathing Gossip Girl since the beginning. I'm just watching for the first time right now. And together, we're your dynamic duo dissecting the drama, romance, and the sometimes questionable fashion choices of this iconic TV show.
That's right. Each week we'll break down the latest schemes, secret hookups, and couture catastrophes. And trust me, there are a few of them.
So, since we're all about inclusivity here, there is always a seat for you at the non-judging breakfast table. So go ahead and grab your coffee or a mimosa if it's that kind of morning, and let's dive into it.
All right, tonight we are going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 3, Poison Ivy. Steve, do you know what that title is referencing?
I do, Leaf, because partially because we've had a little conversation about it, but it is the Drew Barrymore movie from I think the '90s
Yes,
that is.
92.
It was one of the few things my dad wouldn't let me watch.
It also has Sarah Gilbert from Roseanne.
Oh, no kidding.
She,
Yeah, that's
she's the actual
right.
daughter. She's the daughter,
Yeah,
and
that's
and Drew
right.
Barrymore's the best friend who seduces the dad.
Yeah, and I was in love with Drew Barrymore since I was 4 years old watching E.T. And like I said, my dad, it was like, no, 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 do not watch this movie. No, it's totally inappropriate. Watch Revenge of the Nerds. Go watch Police Academy. That's much
I
more.
mean, it is pretty inappropriate, but I mean,
Right, yeah.
but those are as well.
Yeah, yeah, those were those were giving messages that I were super inappropriate for the however like 10-year-old I was when those came out.
Yes. So this episode was written by Felicia Henderson. She is a solid 20 plus year TV writer. Did stuff like Moesha, Sister to Sister, Everybody Hates Chris, Empire, the Netflix Punisher show, and probably the biggest thing she did was Fringe.
What was the TVD again?
Which one?
Oh, that's the director. Sorry, I
Yeah.
thought I
Yes.
jumped ahead.
Yes. It was directed by
Oh yeah, yeah.
J. Miller Tobin, who also is a 20-year TV veteran director. He's done stuff like Oz, Hack, The Mountain, which I only mentioned because Penn Badgley was on it. It was a short-lived show on the WB before Gossip Girl. Also did some Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles, Supernatural, Pretty Little Liars, The Vampire Diaries,
Vampire
and
Diaries.
Revenge.
That's the one that I didn't recognize.
Okay. Yes. Anyways, we're gonna go
And
ahead.
Oz too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's a bit of a leap.
yeah. I mean, he did a couple of HBO shows. Hack was also, I believe, an HBO show.
Oh yeah, yeah. Was that um I vaguely remember Hack.
So, anyways, we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. No cold open again this week. So we go right into Act One. Jenny and the choir sing a cappella as the upperclassmen prepare for Ivy Week at the Constance Billard and St. Jude's. As the students arrive at school, Chuck gives Dan an angry stare as they cross paths in the courtyard. Nate and Chuck are chatting. Nate and Blair lock eyes and smile across the crowd at each other.
Yeah, I mean they're building that tension back up. Kind of boiled over from the previous week. Um, Also, the song that they're singing is, and now I forgot it again.
Glamorous by Fergie.
Yeah, "Glamorous" by Fergie. So like that, it was really cool to, have the choir do what was at the time, a big hit song.
Yes.
and to hear that arrangement was really fun.
So the choir finishes its song as the students are all gathered in an assembly hall to announce the assignments for Ivy Week.
Oh,
Chuck.
and
Oh.
also Jenny in the choir. How interesting! Who would have thought that she would want to be a singer?
Yeah, I think that they did that to placate her, probably.
Yeah, yeah. I had that thought on rewatch
Yes.
of yeah.
So the choir finishes its song as the students are all gathered in an assembly hall to announce the assignments for Ivy Week. Chuck and Nate sneak off for a puff. Blair and the minions are wondering where Serena is, and then we flash back to their individual mornings.
Yeah, we're not seeing a whole lot yet. Still, we're just setting up these scenes. Once again, establishing that Chuck and Nate like to imbibe with the devil's lettuce.
Yes, they like a quick puff or a long puff sometimes. Anyway, so we flash back and we see in the Brooklyn loft, Rufus and Jenny are giving Dan a pep talk about getting into his chosen favorite school, Dartmouth.
And like this is one of the rare moments where you actually see a little bit of tension between Jenny and Dan. That sibling stuff. They're not fighting. They're not arguing.
Yeah,
But
so
like,
they're just teasing.
yeah, they're teasing. But he's like actually he's irritated by his little
But
sister.
that's just because he's irritated in general that morning.
Yeah,
He's already having a bad morning. You
yeah,
see him cutting his face, shaving and stuff. He's got like
yeah.
4 or 5 tats come out.
Everything is going wrong. Yeah, everything's coming up Millhouse for for Dan today.
Yes.
But it was also I guess the bigger point I was making was how great that sibling relationship is played. How it's portrayed by the two of them.
Yes.
They really are seamless. They know each other's buttons and how to push them, and it just really makes you feel. It makes me miss my little sister.
And yeah, and I definitely think that comes down to the actors. They had great chemistry, and I recently listened. Taylor Momsen came on Penn Badgley's podcast actually.
Oh,
And they
nice.
still have great chemistry together.
That's
And
really cool.
like he's very like protective of her in real life. Even it's like even though she's now like in her 20s and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in a punk band doing her thing.
Should my mic be pointing directly at me instead of straight up in the air? Am I doing that wrong? It sounded okay.
Yeah, it's a dynamic mic. It's not as directional as the condenser mics.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so then we see Nate and his father running in the park, and the captain once again lays down the law. Nate's priorities should be focused on Dartmouth, law school, and Blair.
And is this where he beats him?
No, that's later.
Is that later? Okay.
Well, so
okay.
yeah. That's at the end of the episode. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's later.
Um,
But yes, so we get the contrast between Dan and Nate. While Rufus has expectations for Dan, his expectation is just that Dan works hard to get what he wants to get,
yeah.
as opposed to the captain who wants Nate to work hard to get what the captain wants.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And Nate who doesn't have to work hard to get what the captain wants.
Yeah,
Nate can actively work against
and still good.
his best his interests
as we see.
as we well and I'm all yeah as we
But
see
but his dad's still riding him to put in the effort anyways.
right well and the biggest thing with that is to me is the not just putting in the effort to succeed but the Blair stuff like you have to maintain this relationship because I'm working on a business deal with her mom. So does he work for Bergdorf's?
No, so I don't know if they've really explained this yet, but basically the deal is the captain is a investment banker, and Eleanor Waldorf has a design line that is about to go public, and he wants to be the company. He wants to be the one that takes her, does the IPO.
Yeah, he does in this episode say to Nate that about that he has business going on with Blair's mom.
Correct.
That is definitely established, and so we have the parent who is putting money over their kid, like prostituting their kid,
Yes.
like like their income and their business deals are more important, and their kid following their exact path to do this to their own kid. Like, here's Nate who's being shoved down this avenue to like marry this girl who, hey, 16-year-old son, marry this girl so I can get this business transaction, traditional concepts of marriage. you know, like, and this whole thing is gonna, yeah, it's a business transaction, and I need you as part of my business transaction.
Yes. Well, the Vanderbilts are old money that goes back to royalty, and the old traditions die hard. They are, still trying to use marriage as the original concept, which is,
Yeah, for property. Yeah,
alliances.
alliances, and
Yes.
yeah, political and monetary
Yeah.
gain.
So, those old families, old traditions die hard.
Yeah, and I think that Nate is just self-aware enough to see that he's not only expected to do all of these things, but then he's supposed to have kids to do the same things. You know,
Mm.
like, which he doesn't want that either. He wants a different life than what's being laid out for him. But that bit between the prostituting your child out was something that really, like, really snagged with me. Um, yeah,
Yes. The Upper East Side parents are pretty horrible.
yeah, and I feel like we're gonna talk about that more at some point.
Yeah, probably. Anyways, we see Blair is at the penthouse talking to Dorota about following her father to her dream school of Yale. Um, and as so we initially just see the body moving around. We don't see the face, so we kind of assume she's talking to her mother,
Oh,
but it actually turns out to be Dorota the maid.
yeah, and it's the first time that we meet Dorota too,
Yes.
which I remember having that thought of, like, oh, this is, her mom's back, because I believe the previous episode she said that she was out in France,
Yes, Paris.
and yeah, and yeah, then Dorota turns around and it's, oh, she's talking to,
The maid.
the maid or nanny, or and my first thought was actually nanny, which, it was like, you seem a little old for a nanny, but okay. But then,
She has the maid
yeah,
uniform
maid
on.
maid makes a lot more sense,
Well,
though.
doesn't she have the maid uniform on?
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Okay.
she sure does.
Okay. That's what I thought.
That's why it makes more
Yes.
sense.
And then Lily and Serena are in the hotel room, and Serena is clearly running behind. Her dream school is Brown.
Yeah, yeah. Which also was her mom's school, she said.
I believe so. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, there,
Yes.
because she said something about, she joked about something else, but, like, yeah, she wanted to go. She is not afraid to follow in her mom's footsteps
Correct.
at this point in
Yes.
time.
And Brown is still an Ivy League school, but is kind of known as the more relaxed of the Ivies.
Yeah,
Um, and so we got the contrast between Nate and Dan, so we also get the contrast between Serena and Blair. One obviously is that Blair is super organized and prim and proper, while Serena is just like a whirlwind
yeah,
blowing through the house, looking for stuff.
yep,
And then on the other side, you get the eating. Blair eats like one little grape, and Serena's like stuffing her face with croissants and
yeah, yeah.
lots of carbs. And so,
Yeah, you're seeing Now, the very first episode, her mom made the comment about you'll never be as young, pretty, or thin
As you are now.
as you are now, and now you're seeing that there are food issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like she does have a bad relationship with food.
Mm-hmm. And then, so after that, we see Serena bumps into Dan as everyone is leaving the assembly. They have an awkward miscommunication where Dan believes Serena is asking about the relationship being over, but she was really asking about the assembly. As Dan leaves, Blair walks up and slut shames Serena.
Yeah, like rude. Um, but like you're already winning, Blair. You're like just walk on by and leave it be, but that doesn't seem like Blair's
No.
style.
But also not a good look for Dan. He was a little cocky there. A little too cocky, I thought.
Yeah, well, yeah, well, Dan, and it's funny because you see Dan's awkward side always pop out, and his awkward and like shy, but then he also has that cocky side to him,
Yes.
where it's like, and it's so funny because like they're so reversed in how they should be and how he should be using them, like he's awkward and shy when he shouldn't, when he
Yeah.
doesn't need to be, and then he's cocky and arrogant when he should be a little more humble. Like it's like, find a balance, dude.
Yes. I think that could possibly be Penn Badgley coming out some in the character. Uh,
Yeah, and yeah,
so pretty early in the Gospel Girls reign, it came out like they found posts that he had made like when he was like 13 on like metal message boards,
oh,
and he's like super cocky, talking shit to like 40-year-old guys and stuff.
oh, that's fantastic.
um, so we see out on the field hockey field, tensions between Serena and Blair continue to rise and even get physical. It appears Blair gets the upper hand by overemphasizing an injury. The scene is scored by the song "I Got It From My Mama" by will.i.am.
Yeah, man, when she takes that hit and she's like looking her dead in the eyes, and then is ah, it's oh man, it's like again, like it makes me miss my little sister. But like it is just that like, oh man, I'm gonna like, because there's nothing
It's like
you
a
can
10
do.
second delay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's yeah. She sits there. She's making eye contact with you. You know she's fine, but there's nothing. You can't be like, oh, she's faking it. Like, you
Yeah,
monster. You just hit her. God, I've been there.
yeah. And that is going to be our first break. And we are back for Act 2. Dan is interviewing to be the Dartmouth Usher.
Yeah, and he is interviewing his heart out. But he also then screws it up because then he makes an awkward, like cocky joke that doesn't land
But does he
at
screw it
all.
up, or was that whole thing planned? I thought that the whole like intentional like mess up was planned.
You think
Like
so? I
he
mean,
planned it as a bad joke, as like the whole because the whole thing seemed rehearsed.
well, yeah, it seemed like it, but I think that he felt like it would land. I don't think that, and I felt like it was rehearsed, but nobody audited it. Nobody, nobody checked up
Oh, it
on.
definitely didn't land.
Yeah,
But I think it wasn't like he screwed up. I think he planned to
well,
screw up,
yeah, I
but
think
it
that he
didn't work
did.
out the
I
way
think
he
that he
hoped.
followed his plan, but yeah, that's exactly what I mean. That
And so then we see we cut to Nate interviewing for the same position and trying to give it up.
yeah, tries to screw it up.
Yeah.
Tries his best
Yeah.
to.
Says, I'm not. This isn't my first choice. Someone else should have this.
Yeah, yeah, I really don't want this.
Yeah.
Please don't give it to me. And like, please give it to someone who wants it more. Is really what he
Yeah.
says, I believe.
And we see Chuck interviewing for the Yale position, doing Chuck Bass things.
Yeah, that he should be because he's Chuck
Yes.
Bass.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a soundboard moment I was setting you up for.
So we cut to Dan and Nate reading the announcements. Nate gets the position that Dan wanted as Dartmouth usher. Dan is very frustrated in the normal chip on his shoulder, blue on his collar manner, but still managed to give Nate a tip about the Ivy rep he will be ushering.
I love the way that Dan and Nate's relationship is developing. That that from the onset, like, they're both into Serena, and Nate knows that he cannot talk to Serena, and he knows that they're both into the same person, but Nate is just like you get the impression that Nate's a good dude because like he has reason not to like Dan, and Dan has reason not to like Nate, and here you have them clash, and because
Mm-hmm.
Nate just got the thing that he didn't want, that was the thing that was all Dan wanted, and Nate got it because of everything that Dan says to him. You get anything you want. Like you of course you're going to get this. You can have anything you want. No matter how hard I work,
Mm-hmm.
I'll never get that. So like he doesn't say anything that isn't true. He's just Dan's an asshole about it, and Nate just doesn't fire back, doesn't take the offensive, and just keeps playing defense a little bit. And it's enough for Dan to realize this guy isn't my enemy. His money is my enemy. His the reps are my enemy, and maybe my bad joke is my enemy. And so he pauses and then gives him advice.
Yes.
And like and I love that the two of these guys, that especially in a high school world, have reason to not like each other.
But
Don't
find a way to work through it.
Yeah, they're
Find common
both,
ground.
yeah, they're both very grown about their own relationship, and they're very they're very self-aware
Yeah.
in where the other person is coming from.
Yeah. So we see Dan initially react with emotion, but he quickly reins it in, at least somewhat, to because he notices that Nate isn't trying to do anything to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do see Dan storming through the courtyard and is stopped by a very bubbly Serena. Serena tries to have a cute moment with Dan, but Dan is having none of it because he is just too frustrated by their different worlds right now. However, as Dan walks away, we see him frustrated at himself that he can't get out of his own way with his dream girl. In my mind, there's clearly still feelings from both sides here.
Yeah, yeah, these two are still interested in each other.
Despite
But
the end of last week.
despite it's still his dream girl.
Yeah.
And he still can't get her out of his head. And so they're still kind of, missing each other in the dark, but they also, like you had said, they can't get out of their own way, neither of them.
And I love this from a character because once again we see Dan react with emotion, but then he realizes what he did was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan catches himself, and Dan doesn't want to be a bad guy. Um, and yeah, it really is great character development for Dan, especially in these back-to-back scenes of him kind of popping off, realizing he's mad at the wrong person,
Yeah.
and kind of reflecting on that.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we get both sides of a phone conversation between Blair and Chuck. Blair is in the penthouse having her leg iced by minions As Chuck rides in his limo, they make plans to find out Serena's secret.
Like, all right, is and Katie right now, like, you saw that she's faking it. Why are you still playing along with
So this
this?
is something I noticed on rewatch. In the initial scene, she grabs her left leg, but then they're icing the right leg. Or it might be the other
Yes.
way around, but it's definitely different legs in each scene.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. And like, why are you like, you know that you're in on it. Like, you know that she's faking it. But then but you know, Blair's the type that wants to be able to be like, oh, they had to ice my leg for hours. You're in on it.
Then we see Dan arrives back at the loft and walks past Jenny and Rufus slams his door. Dan and Rufus are frustrated that Nate won the usher spot over Dan. And as soon as the scene ends, Jenny reveals she is already used to losing out on the Upper East Siders.
Yeah, that one, for one, like, it's crazy to hear that from Jenny because so far from in the first two episodes, her stock's going up, right? Like from the beginning, the first episode where she's playing both sides and
Mm.
making nice, and in the second episode where she has the whole like, you know, I don't have a problem with Serena, but if someone did, I don't have a problem with that either. So like you see her stock going up. You see her we only see her winning among the Upper East Siders. So for her to feel defeated, it's like you just kind of see that difference in their lives, you know?
Yeah. And especially for a young girl like Jenny who is into fashion and the only dresses she has are the ones she makes at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the one that
And
she
one Eleanor Waldorf
yes.
original.
Yes. I also did write down Dan's little joke that he made. He says, "Last year, I believe." Speaking about Nate, last year I believe he had an original thought. It died of loneliness.
Yeah, I love that line. And like and he's again, you see that he's bitter toward Nate, but it's also for you know for kind of a justified reason. You know, he is insulting Nate,
Mm.
but Nate is, you know, he isn't the scholarly type.
Yeah.
You know, he is a guy that gets by, and that's been established. That you know he's following the path that he's just been put on.
Yeah. So Chuck stalks Serena in his limo and sees her enter the Ostroff Center. Chuck calls and informs Blair. Nate is seen trying to follow Dan's advice in reading The Petting Zoo. I'm kind of surprised they didn't have him holding the book upside down. He looks so confused.
Yeah, it's so just this anguished look on his face trying to
Yes.
get through the book.
He is definitely the show's official himbo at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
Couple things. We do notice that even though Nate's there sitting with Blair, but Blair says on the like that he's tries to pretend like she's talking to her mother, not to Chuck. So
yeah,
she's hiding that fact from Nate.
yeah,
And then also a little bit of Gossip Girl trivia. Now's a decent time to mention it. The Ostroff Center. It's a recurring location in the show's run. All 6 seasons it appears pretty much. And it is named after Dawn Ostroff, who was the president of the UPN and later the CW, and was definitely big involved in setting up Gossip Girl, which was one of the flagship shows of the first year of the CW.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
And then so later on in the show, I could believe in the 6th season.
Poor
Yeah,
CW.
yeah,
Just want to say, just poor CW. That it's like we did it. We've got our network together in
yeah.
2007, right before all networks just.
Yes. But yes, and then in season 6, it's mentioned that the Ostroff Center is renamed the Pedowitz Institute because at that point Mark Pedowitz had taken over as network president.
Yeah, yeah, it was neat tributes.
So that is the end of the second act. We go right into the act three. Back at the Waldorf penthouse, Blair and Chuck speculate why Serena is at the Ostroff Center. So yeah, I mean, they assume it's probably she's there for drugs or
Yeah,
alcohol.
and considering that she disappeared, and when she disappeared, it, it's really funny. They've basically showed that she disappeared without a trace when she went away prior to season one. You know, um,
Well, I think it was known that she was at boarding school,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
she just didn't communicate with anyone.
Right, right. I felt like the impression I got was without telling anybody, she up one night, left, went to boarding school.
Yes, but
Um,
yeah, it was right after the Shepherd wedding.
but there are many times where people reference her not drinking anymore, and even though we see her drinking. But like, there are a few like, oh, I thought you
Not
weren't doing that
partying. Yeah.
anymore, and like, yeah,
Yes, it's definitely implied that pre the show she was definitely a party girl.
that she used to drink a lot, and that, and so it's one of those things where it it's never been said aloud by her, but by other people they have talked about her drinking before the show,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
so that it does lead to the logical conclusion of going there
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for treatment.
So at the Ostroff Center, the Vanderwoodsons are having a family therapy session. The same issue keeps coming up with Lily wanting to hide Eric's problems and Serena and Eric want to be honest. The therapist agrees that an event out is a good compromise for Eric.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, since you were feeling like all of this depression and anxiety, maybe the first time you leave this super safe and secure setting, it should be at a giant party full of super intense people who are really on the brink of losing
Well,
it.
not just that. You can't handle going to your own home, but you can go to a party.
Yeah, yeah,
It's specifically you shouldn't go home, but yeah, go to a party. That's fine.
yeah, yeah. And I keep thinking about the party that he's going to is like all of these people who are trying to impress these representatives from the different colleges,
Mm-hmm.
and how how intense of an atmosphere that is. That it isn't a casual brunch at Chuck's hotel. It's like people trying to like make the path that's going to be the rest of their life. Like, that's stressful. That's like not the party you take someone to
Yeah.
the first time out either.
At the school, we see Rufus just being a really good dad, trying to find an out of the box solution to get his son to the Ivy Rep party. And conveniently, the person who can make this happen is our very own Lily Vanderwoodson.
That scene is fantastic when it's um where oh she's in a good mood. She's in a good mood. Well, she hasn't seen me yet.
And he was right because as soon as she walks up to see him, she's like, "Oh
Yeah,
shit,
and
what are you
it's
doing here?"
it also, I love that this establishes that everyone's afraid of Lily,
Yeah,
but Rufus.
yeah,
Like, Rufus doesn't give a shit. But like everyone else in Lily's orbit, Lily is powerful, and Lily knows how to get what she
yeah.
wants. And that's been established all along, and now you see that like the other people in her orbit are just as
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're just as afraid of her.
She runs the show
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
She is the Blair of the adults.
Yeah. Very much.
Back at the loft, Rufus reveals that he got Dan into the party on the program as part and on the program as part of the newly formed refreshments committee.
Yeah. And And how did you get that committee? How did you get the newly formed refreshments committee formed, Dad?
Well, I'm part of the newly formed entertainment committee.
Oh boy, what was it? Who did you hire to do the entertainment then, head of the entertainment committee?
Well, the only person I can get in such short notice was myself.
Oh Jesus Christ, this day can't get any worse. Like, and it's so funny how, any kid hearing this conversation, oh, so you got me into the party, awesome. Oh, so I can work. Oh, and you can get a gig. Great. Although, when I hear this, I'm getting excited because now we're 3 episodes in and I still have yet to see Lincoln Hawk. So here, when I find that he's going to be performing, I'm excited for Lincoln Hawk.
Well, so since you mentioned that, Dan's reaction isn't even the normal kid reaction of embarrassment of a kid. He just feels that, what does he call it? Post-punk math rock or something?
Yeah.
It isn't appropriate for this event.
That's right. Oh my God, I love it. But yeah, post-punk math rock. And yeah, and it's like, but still, like, I'm so excited to see. And he does respond that he's going to tone it down somehow, doesn't he? Or
Yes. Rufus Unplugged.
yeah, Rufus Unplugged. Yeah, I love it. I am dying for some Lincoln Hawk, and I know I could spoil this for myself, and I have not. I am so excited to eventually get to hear Lincoln Hawk.
We'll get there. So the Vanderwoodsons arrive at the party, and Lily is clearly nervous. Eric seems in good spirits.
Yeah. Eric's glad to be out. He's excited to be at this party. So, good for him. But yeah, Serena's a little intense.
Yeah. At the party, we are greeted by the aforementioned Rufus Unplugged. And Dan is serving drinks and can't help but stare at Serena as she enters with Lily and Eric. Serena interrupts Blair's conversation with the Yale rep, the road crew, with Blair's father. It is revealed that Chuck and Blair have invited Dr. Ostroff to the party. Dun-dun-dun.
For one, I want to point out that once again we see Blair, who is eager to go to Yale, wants to go to Yale, has made that very clear. Her dad went to Yale, and she's a legacy at Yale. Again, we have the kid making their own decisions that are following in their parents' footsteps. So, like, it's not that it's wrong for the kids to follow in their footsteps, but it's when the parents like you missed a footstep. I find that really interesting that both Blair and Serena want to go to the schools that their parents went to.
Yeah.
They want those paths, and they still very much, you can tell, look up to their moms, even though they have, especially you see Lily and Serena's struggles with Lily wanting Serena to be back into the public eye.
Well, I really like their conversation as they're entering. Like, because Serena says, I'm going to be, have you seen the Yale rep? And Lily's like, didn't you want to go to Brown and Blair wanted to go to Yale? And Serena's like, yeah. And Lily just makes this like, she's like this knowing, like, she like goes,
yeah.
And she's just like, no, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I know what's going on here.
yeah. And it's funny because, like, you see Lily have that recognition, which shows that it's nothing new.
Yeah.
That, like, the Serena wants what Blair has, and Serena's going to get what Blair, what Blair has. It's not new. It's a pattern now.
Yes.
you know, and we've only heard it talked about. We've never actually, other than episode 1 where she sleeps with Nate, any other time we haven't seen this side of Serena yet. We've only seen Blair on the offensive. This is the first time we've ever seen Serena take the offensive. And she steps into the role really well. And it is like a little bit of a twist for how you see Serena, that like, wow, she can play this game. She does know Blair's game, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
We also get the first mention on the show of Blair's La Perlas from Chuck, which at the time I had really no idea what it was other than just figuring out by context.
Right.
But it is in fact a brand. At the time, I kind of thought like Victoria's Secret's the be all and end all of lingerie,
Right.
but really that's like the Tommy Hilfiger to the Chanel's of the
Yeah.
world.
And what's funny is I actually went home and brought this up with Robin, the conversation about it, and I couldn't remember the name La Perlas. And I was like, oh yeah, and I described it exactly that way. That like, you have Victoria's Secret that's like supposed to be the fancy stuff, but then that's really like, but this is like the Chanel to Tommy. She goes, oh, do you mean La Perlas? I'm like, yeah. She's like, she knows her shit.
Uh, but so yes, then we have Nate has an awkward conversation with the Dartmouth rep about his book, The Petting Zoo.
Yeah. Oh, poor Nate. Oh, he's trying.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. Bless your heart. Oh, and it's like on so many levels with Nate, like I tried to read your book and I didn't get it. I don't really want to read I didn't want to read your book. I read your book and I didn't get it. I don't want to go to your school. I really don't want to be having this conversation. I told the guy that I interviewed that I don't want to be here doing this. Please let me go home. Please let me go home. Please let me go home. Is like everything you see in his face. And like the poor kid just like has zero desire to have anything that is going on right now.
So then we get Bart Bass greets Eric and Lily. Bart thinks Eric is just back from Miami. It appears that Lily's cover story is working. As Eric is leaving, we see Cotty explain some advanced physics project she has been working on.
Yeah, I love this. I said after watching episode 1 that when you see a recurring background, that you should be paying attention to what's in the background as much as what's in the foreground. And they try very hard from the start to establish Katie and Is as background, as set dressing almost. And I remember thinking like, I want to pay attention there. I feel like there's something there, and this was my payoff. that it's like, yeah, I knew it. I knew that there's more to these two. That they're and it also kind of, okay, why are these two hanging around Blair when they clearly have their own goals and their own interests? Well, of course, that everyone is kind of able to get something from someone in this universe. Yeah.
It's a kingdom.
It's a kingdom.
Hierarchy.
Yeah.
The girls of the Met steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The left and right hand of Blair.
We see Eric and Jenny having a touching moment.
Yeah. This is when Eric tells her, right, that why he was
not quite. That's
they start talking.
They start talking, and she mentions like manatees. Really?
Yeah,
She picks up on everyone else is like buys along with the story because they really just don't care.
Well,
they don't care.
They and they in that universe, the lie is simpler than the
Yes.
truth. You know, yep, he was in Florida. Oh, manatees, sure, checks out.
Yeah.
Checks out. I don't have to ask any more questions about this. Kid's clearly fine.
But yeah, Jenny immediately clocks it, and they have a little touchy moment.
Yeah.
Um, and then so back at the refreshment table, Dan is disgusted that Serena is using this party to get back at Blair, instead of actually trying to go to college. Nate politely ignoring Serena. Dan tries to give Nate more advice that goes over his head. Uh, but Nate generously asks Dan to bring the rep his drink.
Yeah. And starting with this Serena and Dan thing, it like Serena being in this world, she's going to get into Brown. She's going to Brown if
Yeah.
that's where she wants to go. There's no question about that. And here's Dan who has to work for everything, who has to literally work at this party just for the chance to maybe get to talk to people at the school he wants to go to.
Yeah.
That like for where this opportunity that he knows that he was given to the guy who gets everything and knows she's gonna get whatever she wants anyway, and so she doesn't. It's again, he's justified in being frustrated with
Mm-hmm.
his position, and again, this is the first time we're seeing this behavior, and it's like, wow, this is really validating most of what they said about you in the first place. So you're
Yeah.
just firmly planting yourself in this world to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. It's definitely not a good look.
Yeah. But then when we turn to the Nate and Dan stuff, and again, Nate doesn't have to do this. Nate can go and pretend to talk to this guy for the rest of the night and do what his dad wants. And Nate doesn't want to do that. And Nate could also just walk away. Hey, Dad, I'm not feeling well. I got to go.
Yeah.
And walk away. But instead, he goes, hey, take these drinks over to him.
So yeah, he does. But I like that this time. Actually, Dan was the first one to initiate like the peaceful, because like he's asking about him and like what's he like, but and then he's trying to give more advice.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it's just like you do it.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, exactly. And once again, you see like the two of them just knowing that like their problems and their differences are easy things to set aside.
Mm-hmm.
There's without animosity, and we can both get what we want. And it was just really it was a really great moment for the two of them.
Definitely like the bromance brewing there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, then we see Nate is confronted by his father as he leaves the party. Nate outright tells his father that he doesn't want to go to Dartmouth and storms off.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for Nate.
About
Good
time.
for you. It's about time. You said the words out loud. You told him this isn't what you want. Good for you, Nate.
There's definitely no going back now.
Yeah.
Not going to Dartmouth. Nope.
Man, you really sabotaged that interview. You're walking out of this early. You're telling your dad straight up you don't want to go. Man, Nate, great story arc. Can't wait to see where you go next. Clearly that door is shut.
Yep, definitely. All right. Back in a quiet room, Eric is revealing to Jenny that he tried to commit suicide. Jenny promises not to tell anyone as they return to the party.
Yep. Lips are sealed, aren't they, Jenny? That door's shut. Good story arc. I can't wait to see what you do next.
So are we gonna see a Eric and Jenny romance?
I would like to think so. They're fucking adorable. They're just two cute teenagers, and like, yeah, they would be adorable, and they're so sweet with each other, and they just, yeah, I would hope so.
So we're gonna get some sibling double dates.
I would love that. Although I also could see that not happening, because I could also see them not wanting to double date.
What do we throw Lily and Rufus into the mix
Yeah,
too?
yeah, right. Yeah,
The
let's just
triple.
have. Once that happens, then the other four just all look at each other like, well, this was good. Okay, this has gone too far.
All right. Blair is at the podium and brings Dr. Ostroff up on stage and tells everyone that Serena has been seeking treatment at the Ostroff Center for drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Oh my God, Blair. Blair, you lined her up in your sights. You took your shot, and man, like you didn't get the kill you thought you got, but man, you made her look bad
Yeah,
here. But
shots fired.
yeah, shots fired. But but man, if you're gonna make a shot like that, you got to go for the kill. And I don't think this is.
Didn't end up panning out the way she hoped.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Serena's reaction to it, right? Where
Well, so that's what we get to right here. So
oh, that's right.
Eric tries to reveal the truth, but much to Lily's chagrin, Serena takes the fall to protect her brother by going up on stage. Jenny immediately breaks her promise and reveals to
Yeah.
Dan that Eric was actually the one in the center.
Like the next scene. I promise your secret safe with me. I absolutely will not tell anybody. Nope. No secrets. No, nothing gets out of this mouth. It was Eric. Immediately. No. It wasn't her. It was her brother. Eric, the one that attempted suicide. Over there. That guy.
And then we see in an empty room, Lily confronts Serena about the reveal.
Yeah. And it's like, what did you want me to do? Like I was going to visit my brother that you hid away.
Well, the first thing Lily says is, why is Blair talking about a drug problem that you don't have? You don't have a drug problem, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To question her there.
Because they don't have a
Yeah,
relationship.
they don't talk.
Yeah.
They don't know
She
each
doesn't. She
other.
doesn't even know if her daughter has a drug problem. That's how little they talk.
Yeah, she doesn't know her kids. And that's and they
So we are back from little technical difficulties there. Serena re-enters the party and, on the verge of tears, begs Blair for a truce, which is snippily denied.
yeah, and like you see that Serena started dipping her toe back into this rivalry, back into this, thing that they had, and immediately wants to get back out of it. Does not want to be in it at all, and is ready to just run, And Blair's not having it, and Blair be blaring.
Yeah. Dan catches up with Serena and finally apologizes for what he said before. They seem to leave things in a good place with plans to meet up and not talk.
Not talk. And I know I didn't really think of that as not talk. I feel my impression of it was more the two of them can't get out of each other, get out of their own way, and they always say the wrong thing to each other. However, there is the implication of not talking.
Naughty business.
Naughty business.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then back at the party, Eric privately reveals to Blair that he is the one who's the patient at the Ostroff Center.
Yeah, and man, is that look on Blair's face priceless.
Her skin goes white.
Yeah, and like kudos to Leighton Meester, because like, man, does she nail that?
Yeah.
Man, does she nail the just being in this position of power and having the pedestal just ripped out from under her, and because Blair is out for Serena's blood and had no intention and no idea that she was actually, that there were other casualties in this war, and that she took that shot and actually hit Eric. And Eric's a little brother to her. They've established this relationship, and like you can tell that, man, she did not want to hurt Eric, and she's genuinely shook.
Yeah. Um, and we get more of this as the series goes along, but yeah, it's pretty clear that they all grew up together. Eric is like a little brother to everyone, pretty much in the group.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess this is the first time we've seen them interact, but you get that familiarity between them.
Yes,
you get that sense of, that there's that history with Serena, and anyone who has friends with little siblings, that I my best friend, I just saw his sisters for the first time in probably over a decade, but like they're still little sisters to me, and one of them's my age, but like they're still little sisters to me.
and I think not only Leighton Meester but also Connor Paolo, who plays Eric,
Nailed
both
it.
yeah, because they gave you that relationship without having to give you any exposition.
Yeah, exactly.
And you totally knew what was going on between them.
Yeah. You needed no background. You needed nothing else. You just instantly, they just communicated
Yes.
they communicated their lifetime of knowing each other in a few glances and in a few comments and in a brief conversation. It was really, really impressive work on both actors.
Yes, I agree. And that would be the end of Act 3. And so we get into the epilogue. Back at the loft, Dan thanks Rufus for getting him into the party. So Dan finally, he's learning.
He realized.
He knows his dad helped him out.
Yeah. He recognizes it, and he's grateful. It was a great.
Which again, like I've been saying, character development. Character does bad thing. Character learns. Character does good thing.
Yeah. Exactly. This show is phenomenal in how they address character development, because also, taking that English teacher piece aside, from the different foundations of character development, one of the biggest things is, you have like what the character says and what the character does, but one of those really important things is what the people say about the character, both to them and when they're not around. And here you have Dan, who is who is saying about his appreciation for his dad, and recognizing that, and showing that despite his frustrations initially, his dad really knew what he was doing. So it really not only develops the character of Dan as the kid who is willing to take his shots and learn lessons and learn along the way, but also that Rufus is a slick guy, that he's smooth, that he knows how to get things done, and he knows how to work with people to trade for the things that he wants for his kids.
Yeah.
So it's really great character development on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And so Nate is once again waking up at Chuck's suite. They are both kind of hungover again.
Yeah, and Chuck is, I believe, probably in bed with a or some women.
Yes.
That typically tends. Oh, not any woman. No, he does. I think this time is she in the bed with him, or is it just implied that he?
He gets. There's a note. He does, because he switched with the Princeton rep.
Yeah.
Because he got into New Jersey.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, he got into New Jersey. Yeah, he got.
Princeton.
Yeah, he got into Princeton.
Yeah.
Chuck, you fucking disgusting. But Chuck Bass, yeah, he and we've seen Chuck Bass, the sexual predator and creep, And now you see Chuck Bass, who also is able to woo women too.
Mm-hmm.
He does have game, which it's also one of those things like you don't have to be the fucking disgusting creep you are.
Yeah.
But he yeah, yeah. Well, no buds. I mean, he doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the fucking
Yeah.
disgusting creep he is.
But that
He
just goes into the whole psychology of it. We won't go too deep into that because it's just a gross subject.
and yeah, and
But yeah, it's a power dynamic.
yeah,
He likes power and he wants to have power over these women.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, it is implied that he sleeps with the Princeton rep.
Yes.
That we see him at the party
Which
specifically.
presumably is older than high school age,
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
very
Well,
least.
he makes there.
We see her,
He
but
he
she
makes
try at least.
a cougar reference. He says
Yeah.
they call him the Tigers. He makes a reference to the Tigers, which I took as a cougar reference.
I think it was more about wild sex.
And yeah, well, yeah.
But yeah, definitely older than he is.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, she works for the
Yeah.
universities, and the other reps were established author
Yeah.
and guy that old enough to be Blair's dad,
Mm-hmm.
was on the crew team with her dad. So yeah, and it was so you get the idea that Princeton rep was not only older but probably
We did get a quick glance at her. I would say she's probably like mid 30s, early 30s.
yeah, that was what I was thinking,
Yeah.
mid-30s.
Anyways, as Nate, so the reason why they wake up is because Nate gets a call from his dad because he has to go off for the morning run with the captain. And when he shows up, it is revealed that the captain invited the Dartmouth to the run, and he made up a lie about why Nate left the party. He said he had food poisoning.
Yeah, and then we see and we see the captain was told flat out like this isn't what I want. This isn't what I'm going to do. This isn't what I'm doing. And he's like, "Well, hey son, sorry about that food poisoning that you really got over in like what 12 hours.
Yeah.
Let's go for a run."
Hey.
Um was the race earlier in the episode the one where Nate beats the captain and the captain's like, "Well, if you wouldn't have cut me off."
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to bring up earlier, but I couldn't remember if that was the race. So like just fucking captain. Like he's the worst.
Yes, Nate has some pretty terrible parents.
I've never seen Nate's mom. So
Okay.
far
Yeah, we haven't met her yet.
yeah, I have only seen one parent of each of the main cast members.
Okay.
I've heard reference to Blair's dad. I've heard reference to. I feel like I've heard Serena's dad referenced, but maybe not. Maybe they haven't even brought that up. Dan's mom has been referenced. Chuck's mom is referenced in the first episode about Chuck saying, "Get some of my mom's pills."
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, we've we've only seen one parent from
Yeah,
each character.
that makes sense. Jenny visits Eric, who is back at the Ostroff Center. It is revealed that Lily does not visit very often. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I mean, like going back to the fact that Lily doesn't know her kids. Lily's kids are there for her to show, and they're not there to interrupt her life at all. And I don't feel like we see her pawning her kids out for money the way we do the captain,
Mm.
but I feel like we do see her um doing it for image and
Yeah, her
for
kids are just an accessory.
yeah, exactly.
They're a
Yeah.
reflection on her, but she doesn't really care. As long as they don't embarrass her,
Yeah.
she doesn't really care what they do.
Right. Yeah, and now she's embarrassed by both of them. So
Mm.
now she, but and since Eric embarrassed her by doing something that she's kept a complete and total secret, He's hidden away.
And then we come to the final scene of the episode. On a bench under a bridge, Serena's reading while avoiding a steady rainfall. Blair walks up and reads a letter she wrote to Serena but never sent. White flags are raised, and the episode ends.
Yeah, I mean, the end of this episode is just fucking moving.
Yeah.
It is powerful. The acting between Serena and Blair, they just lay it all out.
Yeah, I definitely get a little misty every time I watch it.
Yeah, yeah. It just you see, and there is that thing in the back of my head of, is this another game from Blair? Is it Blair playing another game? But even if it is, you can see that she really is laying her heart out,
Yeah.
and really laying into where she was at that time. But Blair also, she
Even if
has
she is playing a game, those are all true things that happened.
exactly. And and you know, Blair, I think that the biggest thing with her is that she's recovering from realizing that her shot misfired and hit Eric.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, no one else was supposed to be hurt by this. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to try. And they do, like they have this great moment, and like you said, it's powerful and it's emotional, and they really uh on both of them, the just that connection that you feel between them, it's really it
Yeah.
is a great end. And it's great that now they're friends, and I can only imagine that that door is closed. Fantastic, and great story arcs, ladies, and can't wait to see what you do together.
Yep. Best friends for the rest of the
Best
6 years.
best friends for another, you know, yeah, 6.5, 4, 5.5 seasons. Wonder what conflicts you'll get into with other people. Definitely not each other.
Yep. And then that is the end of the episode. So let's go ahead and get into some segments. Steve, what do you grade this episode?
This episode is an A for me, start to finish. It is starting off, with the choir in the beginning, and just scene by scene, it is just really well shot, really well played, really well acted, and really well written. The character development is just so many stories that really do almost feel, they're not coming to a close, because that this show is only getting started, but so many things that feel resolved, that have that carpet ripped out from under you kind of feel. Just really fantastic storytelling in this episode.
I agree. I'm gonna give it an A plus. To me, this is about as perfect as an episode of Gossip Girl gets. Like you said, all the way through, you got all the storylines intersecting, which I like. Um, got pretty much everyone interacts. You get the big reveal with Eric and Blair. You get the great scene at the end. Like you said, all the shots. The shot at the end is great, and like the very final scene, you get like 3 separate pullbacks, and it just, yeah, the acting,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
directing, it all hit in this episode.
yeah.
A plus. A
Cinematography,
plus.
like they checked every box in this episode, and it is, yeah, and yeah, it's damn near perfect.
And we are gonna go to our stock watch. Um, who do you got going up this week?
So going up this week, Nate, for even though like he kind of got screwed in the end, he told his dad what he wanted. He made a new relationship with Dan. And in this world, connecting and networking, those things boost your stock. And both Dan's stock went up with his. Dan, who looked like he was going to take a dip at one point, ends up really shooting up in the stock
Yeah,
market.
he got that character development.
Yeah, yeah. I also have Eric and Rufus both going up. Probably Jenny and Eric, but I feel like Jenny was more a vehicle for Eric to have that development.
Well,
You
the reason
know,
why I can't give it to Jenny is because she revealed that secret
oh
right
yeah,
away,
she
immediately.
clearly can't keep a secret. So like she was a sympathetic ear, but yeah, she
But
did
yes, my
immediately.
ups were Nate, Dan, Rufus, and Eric.
Yeah, that's who I have as well. Yeah.
What about going down?
Well, Chuck is still plummeting, looking for rock bottom. Uh, and Blair and Serena, their stock both took a hit. Both of
Yeah,
theirs went down.
yeah. Um, I had Chuck and Blair and Serena also. Chuck obviously being creepy, stalking Serena, and just being gross as usual.
Yeah,
Blair, because she tried to take a shot at Serena, but friendly fire to Eric's the one taking it. And then
hmm
Serena just for being petty and going after something she didn't even want just to get
yeah,
back at her best friend.
yeah. You went back into the fight and then realized you're out of shape. You went to get into the ring and you haven't trained in far too long.
Yes. And then I also had the captain for being a total fucking douchebag as usual, and also Lily for just being a bad mom.
Yeah, yeah. I actually completely agree with those as well. That
Yeah,
we should actually track our stock
yeah.
on and like
Oh,
actually have a graph.
we will have that in our season recap.
Okay, cool,
We're gonna
cool.
do break down all the analytics.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, Steve. Who do you have for best outfit this week?
So my favorite outfit this week was actually Blair at the end. And like I had a whole conversation with Robin. Robin can't stand that I'm talking about fashion right now, by the way. She's like, I can't listen to you talk about this. But I was like, Blair dresses for power. At almost any given point, she's wearing something that really stands out and just firmly plants her in a position
Yeah.
of power, I find. And that last outfit where she's raising the white flag,
Mm-hmm.
but she's still like you get that sense of like it's so in like I feel like everything she wears is so intentional, at
Oh,
all
definitely.
times. And I really found that outfit at the end was great.
So I picked the same scene, but different girl. I had to go with Serena this time. The hat, the way she matched the makeup with the outfit, like a whole monochrome look going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was so Paris Serena.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Sitting in the rain, reading a book. Yeah,
I mean, when we were talking about that last scene and just the perfection of that moment, it was right down to the costume design, right down to the makeup, right down to like every detail of that scene was so
hmm.
perfectly in place.
All right. You got anything you want to plug?
Absolutely. So by now I should have released my album A Weed Wizard's Christmas. It's available pretty much anywhere you would stream music. And there's also a single that is available called Green Christmas. Check that one out as well. Add it to your holiday playlists. And then you can come out to McGillen's on February 8th. I'll be there as the featured artist at the open mic. And then you can also follow me at Steve the Weed Wizard on TikTok. And you can follow me on Instagram at steve.marchion. Marchion. It is not spelled how it sounds. It does not sound how it is spelled.
The Marcher Lord.
Yeah. March Ion.
Yes. You can follow me on Twitch where I review PA marijuana and medical marijuana and play video games. So come out and chat on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. You can find me at twitch.tv/Hot Capicola. You can also follow me on Instagram at Hot Capicola. You can follow the podcast on TikTok and on Instagram at Non-Judging Breakfast Pod, and on the social media formerly known as Twitter at NJB Pod. And we are also the Non-Judging Breakfast Club podcast on Facebook.
Yeah, and if you have any questions for us, you can email us at nonjudgingbreakfastpod@gmail.com. And we'll answer your questions right here on the podcast. And if you really enjoy the show, please give us a like and a follow on Spotify or Apple or wherever you stream your podcasts. It'll really help with our discoverability.
And in 2 weeks, we'll be back to review the next episode, Season 1, Episode 4, A Bad News Blair.
Which is a title that I instantly recognized.
Until next time, you know you love us. XOXO.